You know, there's a moment that changes everything. I was sitting in my office late one evening when a successful CEO walked in, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. This man had built empires, led thousands, and yet here he was broken. His voice trembled as he shared how his wife had told him she couldn't connect with him anymore. "I've spent 20 years being strong," he whispered, "never letting her see me vulnerable. And now she's leaving because she says she never really knew me." That moment crystallized something I've observed across decades of working with men and women. Something that challenges one of our society's most deeply held beliefs about masculinity. We've all heard it, haven't we? Real men don't cry. Stay strong. Don't show weakness. These messages start when we're boys playing in the schoolyard, and they follow us into boardrooms, relationships, and every aspect of our lives. But what if I told you that this fundamental belief, that men shouldn't cry in front of women, isn't just wrong? What if I told you it's actually destroying our capacity for genuine connection, undermining our relationships, and creating a barrier between us and the very people we're trying to protect and impress? When was the last time you really connected with someone? I mean truly connected, soul to soul, heart to heart. For many men in this room, that question might make you uncomfortable. You might be thinking about business connections, networking, or surface-level conversations. But I'm talking about something deeper, something more fundamental to our human experience. You see, we've created a paradox in our society. We tell men to be strong, to be providers, to be protectors. And yes, these are noble aspirations, but in pursuing these ideals, we've created an artificial divide between strength and emotion, between protection and vulnerability. We've somehow convinced ourselves that showing emotion diminishes our masculinity, when in reality, it's quite the opposite. The strongest structures in nature aren't rigid. They bend, they flex, they adapt. The mighty oak that never bends in the wind eventually breaks, while the bamboo that sways survives the fiercest storms. Yet we've trained ourselves to be like that oak, rigid and unbending, believing that any display of emotion is a crack in our armor. I've spent years studying human behavior, relationships, and the intricate dance between masculine and feminine energy. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the belief that men shouldn't cry in front of women is one of the most damaging myths we perpetuate. It's a myth that's costing us our marriages, our relationships with our children, and most importantly, our connection with ourselves. Think about the messages we send our sons. From the moment they can walk, we start the conditioning. Don't cry. Be a big boy. Shake it off. We do this with the best intentions, believing we're preparing them for a tough world. But in reality, we're teaching them to disconnect from a fundamental part of their humanity. We're teaching them to fear their own emotions. Well, we think we're making them stronger. We're actually making them more fragile. Because when you build a wall around your emotions, you don't just keep the pain out. You keep everything out. Joy, love, connection, intimacy, all of these require vulnerability. All of these require the courage to be seen, to be known, to be human. Look around this room. Every person here has a story of a time they held back tears, a time they swallowed their emotions because they thought that's what was expected of them, a time they chose strength over authenticity, only to find that in doing so, they actually became weaker. But what if strength isn't about holding back tears? What if true strength lies in having the courage to be vulnerable? What if the real measure of a man isn't his ability to suppress his emotions, but his willingness to express them authentically? The truth is, women don't want a partner who's emotionally invulnerable. They don't want a fortress. They want a human being complete with fears, hopes, dreams, and yes, tears. When we cry in front of a woman, we're not showing weakness. We're showing trust. We're saying, I trust you enough to let you see all of me, not just the polished exterior. I remember counseling a couple. They'd been married for 30 years. The husband was what society would call a man's man, successful, strong provider. He'd never cried in front of his wife, not once in 3 decades. He thought he was being strong for her. But when I asked his wife what she wanted most from their relationship, do you know what she said? I just want to know what he's feeling. I want to know he trusts me enough to let me in. Why do we really hold back our tears? Is it truly because we believe it makes us weak? Or is it because we're afraid? afraid of judgment, afraid of vulnerability, afraid of what might happen if we let down our guard. The truth is, holding back our emotions isn't strength. It's fear masquerading as strength. Real strength isn't about being invulnerable. Real strength is about being authentic even when that authenticity makes us uncomfortable. It's about having the courage to be seen, truly seen by those we love. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most connected to someone. I'm willing to bet those moments involve vulnerability, either yours or theirs, because that's how real connection happens. That's how trust is built. That's how love grows deeper. When we hold back our tears, we're not just holding back sadness. We're holding back our humanity. We're holding back our capacity for deep, meaningful connection. We're holding back our ability to heal, to grow, and to truly love. But understanding why this belief is harmful isn't enough. We need to understand how it affects every aspect of our lives. Our relationships, our mental health, our ability to lead, our capacity for joy. We need to understand the real cost of emotional suppression, and more importantly, we need to learn a new way forward. You see, the problem isn't just that we don't cry in front of women. The problem is what that represents. Our collective belief that vulnerability equals weakness, that emotions are somehow feminine and therefore less valuable. This belief system doesn't just hurt us, it hurts everyone around us. It creates a ripple effect that touches every relationship, every interaction, every moment of potential connection. I'm not suggesting we should break down crying at every opportunity. This isn't about becoming emotionally uncontrolled. This is about becoming emotionally intelligent. It's about understanding that our emotions, all of them, serve a purpose. They're not weaknesses to be suppressed. They're tools for connection, understanding, and growth. When we suppress our tears, we're not just holding back emotion. We're holding back our ability to process pain, to heal from trauma, to connect deeply with others. We're denying ourselves one of the most fundamental human experiences. The release that comes with allowing ourselves to feel fully and completely. Think about the last time you held back tears. Maybe it was at a funeral during a difficult conversation or watching your child achieve something remarkable. In that moment, what were you really holding back? Was it just tears or was it something more? Was it your humanity or capacity for deep feeling? Your ability to share a profound moment with someone you love? The cost of this emotional suppression is staggering. It shows up in our rising rates of depression among men, in our struggles with intimacy, in our inability to form deep, lasting connections. It shows up in broken marriages, in distant father-child relationships, in boardrooms where leaders can't connect with their teams. But there's hope. There's always hope. Because just as we learn to suppress our emotions, we can learn to express them. Just as we built walls, we can learn to build bridges. Just as we trained ourselves to be strong by being silent, we can learn to be strong by being authentic. And that's what we're going to explore together. We're going to understand why this belief about men crying in front of women is not just wrong, but actively harmful. We're going to learn how to embrace our full emotional range, how to be vulnerable without losing our strengths, and how to create deeper, more meaningful connections through authentic emotional expression. When we move forward, I want you to keep one question in mind. What might be possible in your relationships if you allowed yourself to be fully, authentically human? What connections might you forge? What understanding might you reach? What love might you experience if you stopped holding back your tears and started sharing your truth? Because the journey we're about to embark on isn't just about crying in front of women. It's about reclaiming our full humanity. It's about understanding that true strength lies not in emotional suppression, but in emotional authenticity. It's about learning that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the most powerful form of courage. Now, I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack, not just for an hour a day, but for years, decades even. In this backpack, you're carrying every tear you've held back, every emotion you've suppressed, every vulnerable moment you've hidden. How heavy would that backpack be right now? How much energy does it take to carry it? How exhausting is it to maintain that weight day after day? This is what we're doing to ourselves when we buy into the belief that men shouldn't cry in front of women. We're not just holding back tears, We're carrying a burden that grows heavier with each passing day, and the weight of that burden affects everything. Our health, our relationships, our ability to lead, our capacity for joy. Let me share something profound about the human body. When we suppress emotions, our body doesn't just forget about them. Those suppressed emotions become stored in our cellular memory. They manifest as tension in our shoulders, tightness in our stomach. Our body keeps the score, and eventually it demands to be heard. Think about the irony here. We hold back our tears because we think it makes us stronger, but in doing so, we're actually creating weakness, physical weakness, emotional weakness, relational weakness. It's like trying to build a dam to hold back a river. Eventually, the pressure becomes too great and something has to give. When we cry, our body releases stress hormones in our tears. It's literally a physical release of emotional tension. Our ancestors knew this. In ancient cultures, men weren't just allowed to cry, they were expected to. Warriors would weep openly before and after battle. Leaders would cry with their people in times of hardship and joy. They understood something we've forgotten. Tears aren't a sign of weakness. They're a sign of being fully human. I can see some of you shifting uncomfortably in your seats. Maybe you're thinking about times you've held back tears. In the office after a tough meeting. At home when your child said something that touched your heart. With your partner during a moment of deep connection, each time you thought you were being strong. But what if, in those moments, you were actually missing an opportunity for deeper connection? You see, when we hold back our tears, we're not just holding back emotion. We're holding back our ability to connect authentically with others. We're creating a barrier between ourselves and the people we love most. And here's the cruel irony. The women in our lives don't want that barrier. They never asked for it. In fact, they're often desperately trying to break through it. Let's talk about what really happens when a man cries in front of a woman. Not the story we've been told, but the truth. When a man shows emotional vulnerability with a woman who loves him, several powerful things happen. First, it creates a deep bond of trust. By showing vulnerability, we're saying, I trust you with my true self. This isn't weakness. It's one of the most powerful gifts we can give another person. Second, it gives permission for authentic connection. When we show our emotions, we create a space where genuine intimacy can flourish. We open the door for real, meaningful connection. Third, and perhaps most importantly, it breaks down the artificial barrier we built between masculinity and emotion. It shows that being a man isn't about being emotionless, it's about being authentic. I know some of you are still resistant to this idea. You've spent years, maybe decades, building up these walls. You've invested heavily in the belief that showing emotion makes you less of a man. Let me ask you something. How's that working for you? How are your relationships? How deep are your connections? How fulfilled do you feel? The truth is, most men who never cry in front of women aren't actually strong. They're scared. Scared of judgment. Scared of vulnerability. Scared of what might happen if they let their guard down. But here's the thing about fear. It's a terrible foundation for any relationship. Every time you hold back tears, you're making a choice. You're choosing artificial strength over authentic connection. You're choosing protection over vulnerability. You're choosing isolation over intimacy. And while these choices might feel safe in the moment, they're actually creating a prison of emotional isolation. But there's something even more important at stake here. When we refuse to cry in front of women, we're not just hurting ourselves. We're perpetuating a cycle. We're teaching the next generation of men the same harmful lessons that were taught to us. We're passing down the weight of emotional suppression to our sons, our nephews, the young men who look up to us. Emotional pivot. Think about the young boys in your life. What messages are they receiving about emotional expression? When they see you hold back tears, what are they learning about masculinity, about strength, about what it means to be a man? We have the power to break the cycle. We have the opportunity to show them a different way, a way that doesn't require them to carry the heavy backpack of suppressed emotions, a way that allows them to be both strong and vulnerable, both masculine and emotionally authentic. The truth about crying isn't just about tears, it's about freedom. Freedom from the exhausting performance of invulnerability. Freedom from the constant pressure to maintain an emotional facade. Freedom to be fully, authentically human. When we cry in front of women, we're not just showing emotion, we're showing courage. The courage to be seen, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to be real. And that kind of courage is far more impressive than any display of stoic strength could ever be. Think about the women in your life. Your partner, your mother, your daughters, your colleagues. What do they really want from you? Do they want a fortress of emotional invulnerability? Or do they want a human being who's strong enough to be real with them? I've asked this question to thousands of women, and the answer is always the same. They don't want perfection. They want authenticity. They don't want a partner who never cries. They want a partner who trusts them enough to share his tears. Expanding understanding, but this isn't just about our relationships with women, it's about our relationship with ourselves. Every time we hold back tears, we're telling ourselves that parts of our emotional experience are unacceptable. We're creating a split between who we are and who we think we should be. And that split becomes a source of constant tension, of ongoing stress. The cost of this emotional suppression goes far beyond our personal relationships. It affects our leadership abilities, our creative potential, our capacity for empathy and understanding. When we're constantly monitoring and suppressing our emotions, we're using mental and emotional energy that could be better spent elsewhere. So what's the alternative? How do we begin to break down these walls we've built? How do we start to integrate emotional authenticity into our lives in a way that feels genuine and maintains our sense of masculine strength? The journey begins with understanding that strength and vulnerability aren't opposites. They're companions. True strength isn't about never showing emotion. It's about being secure enough in yourself to show your full range of human experience. As we move forward, we're going to explore practical ways to begin this journey of emotional integration. And we'll look at how to start expressing emotions authentically, how to handle the reactions of others, and how to maintain our sense of strength while allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. But before we do that, I want you to sit with a question. What would it feel like to put down that heavy backpack of suppressed emotions? What might be possible in your life if you allowed yourself to be fully, authentically human? What connections might you forge? What understanding might you reach? What freedom might you experience if you stopped holding back your tears and started sharing your truth? The journey to emotional authenticity isn't about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's about reclaiming parts of your humanity that you've been taught to suppress. And this journey begins with a simple but profound truth. Your emotions are not your enemy. I want to share something powerful with you. In my years of working with couples, I've noticed a fascinating pattern. The men who are most respected by their partners aren't the ones who never show emotion. They're the ones who have the courage to be real, to be vulnerable, to show their full humanity. These men have discovered something vital. That true strength isn't found in emotional suppression, but in emotional integration. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to maintain an emotional wall? How much energy it takes to constantly monitor and control your emotional expression? This constant vigilance, this perpetual guardedness. It's not just tiring, it's actually diminishing your power as a man. Think about the strongest people you know. Not just physically strong, but emotionally strong. The ones who can handle any crisis, who can lead through difficult times, who can maintain their center in the storm. I bet they're not the ones who never show emotion. They're the ones who know how to feel deeply and still function effectively. They're the ones who have learned to integrate their emotions into their strength, not suppress them in the name of strength. The truth is, when we cry in front of women, or anyone for that matter, we're not showing weakness. We're showing that we're secure enough in our strength to be vulnerable. We're demonstrating that we don't need to hide behind a facade of invulnerability. And that paradoxically makes us even stronger. Every time you hold back tears, you're not just suppressing an emotion. You're suppressing an opportunity for connection. You're missing a chance to deepen trust, to strengthen bonds, to create the kind of intimate understanding that makes relationships truly fulfilling. You're sacrificing long-term connection for short-term comfort. But here's where it gets really interesting. When we start to allow ourselves to be emotionally authentic, something remarkable happens. Our relationships don't just survive, they thrive. The women in our lives don't lose respect for us. They gain trust in us. Our leadership doesn't diminish. It becomes more impactful because authentic emotion, properly expressed, is a source of power, not weakness. Let me share a profound truth about emotional expression. Tears are not a sign of weakness. They're a sign of being invested. They show that something matters to us, that we care deeply, that we're fully engaged with life. And isn't that exactly what we want? To be men who care deeply, who are fully engaged, who are invested in our relationships and our lives. The problem isn't that men cry. The problem is that we've created a society where men feel they can't cry. We've constructed this artificial division between strength and emotion, between masculinity and vulnerability. But this division isn't serving us. It's not making us stronger. It's making us more fragile. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most connected, most fully yourself. I'm willing to bet those weren't moments of emotional suppression. They were moments of emotional authenticity, moments when you allowed yourself to feel deeply, to express genuinely, to be real. We need to understand something crucial. The women in our lives aren't asking us to be emotional wrecks. They're not asking us to cry at every minor inconvenience. They're simply asking us to be real, to be authentic, to trust them enough to share our true selves, including our emotions. When we refuse to cry in front of women, we're not just holding back tears. We're holding back intimacy. We're creating a barrier between ourselves and the very connections we most deeply desire. We're sacrificing depth for the illusion of control. But there's something even more important at stake here. When we suppress our emotions, we're not just affecting our current relationships. We're affecting our ability to form deep connections in all areas of our lives. We're limiting our capacity for empathy, for understanding, for genuine human connection. The path forward isn't about becoming more emotional. It's about becoming more integrated. It's about learning to incorporate our full range of emotional experience into our identity as men. It's about understanding that true strength includes vulnerability, that real power encompasses all aspects of our humanity. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine what your relationships might look like if you allowed yourself to be fully authentic. Imagine the depth of connection you might experience if you stopped holding back your emotions. Imagine the freedom you might feel if you no longer had to maintain the facade of invulnerability. This isn't about crying more. It's about being more real. It's about having the courage to show up authentically in your relationships, to allow yourself to be seen, to trust that your strength isn't diminished by your humanity. The women in our lives don't need us to be invulnerable. They need us to be real. They don't need us to be emotionless. They need us to be authentic. They don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be present, genuine, and fully engaged in our relationships. When we cry in front of a woman, we're not showing weakness. We're showing trust. We're demonstrating that we value the relationship enough to be vulnerable, that we respect her enough to share our true selves, that we're secure enough in our masculinity to be fully human. Think about the message we send when we refuse to cry in front of women. We're essentially saying, I don't trust you with my real self. I don't believe you can handle my humanity. I need to maintain this facade to keep your respect. Is that really the foundation we want for our relationships? The truth is, emotional authenticity isn't a threat to masculinity. It's an enhancement of it. When we allow ourselves to feel and express our full range of emotions, we become more complete men, not less. We become more capable leaders, more effective partners, more present fathers, more authentic human beings. This journey toward emotional authenticity isn't about losing anything. It's about gaining everything. It's about reclaiming parts of ourselves that we've been taught to suppress. It's about becoming more fully integrated, more genuinely powerful, more authentically masculine. Remember, the goal isn't to cry more. The goal is to be more real, to be more authentic, to be more fully yourself. Because when you're truly yourself, when you're genuinely authentic, that's when you're most powerful. That's when you're most effective. That's when you're most alive. As we continue this journey, I want you to consider something. What might be possible in your life if you allowed yourself to be fully authentic? What relationships might deepen? What connections might strengthen? What opportunities might open up when you're no longer expending energy maintaining an emotional wall? Because the truth is, your tears aren't a sign of weakness. They're a sign of your humanity. And your humanity isn't something to be suppressed or hidden. It's something to be integrated and expressed. It's part of what makes you the powerful, capable, authentic man you are meant to be. Let's talk about what real strength looks like. I've spent countless hours with men whose society would consider successful, CEOs, athletes, military leaders, entrepreneurs. Men who embody what we traditionally think of as strength. And you know what I've discovered? The truly exceptional ones, the ones who inspire deep loyalty and create lasting impact, they all share one quality, the courage to be emotionally authentic. I want you to think about something for a moment. Think about the strongest person you know. Not just physically strong, but someone who embodies true strength, someone who can weather any storm, face any challenge, lead through any crisis. Ask yourself, is this person emotionally closed off, or do they have the capacity? The answer might surprise you, because true strength, the kind that inspires and transforms, doesn't come from emotional suppression. It comes from emotional integration. It comes from being secure enough in your power that you don't need to hide behind a mask of invulnerability. Let me share something profound with you. When we refuse to cry in front of women, we're not protecting our strength. We're limiting it. We're operating at a fraction of our true power because we're constantly expending energy maintaining an emotional wall. It's like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on. You might still move forward, but you're wasting energy and limiting your potential. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're worried about losing respect. You're concerned that showing emotion might diminish your authority or compromise your leadership. But here's the reality. In all my years of working with couples and leaders, I've never once seen someone lose respect for showing authentic emotion. I've seen plenty lose respect for being fake, for being disconnected, for being emotionally unavailable. But think about the leaders you most admire, the ones who've truly inspired you. Were they emotional robots? Or did they have the courage to show their humanity, the ability to connect on an emotional level? The strength to be vulnerable. When the moment called for it, we need to understand something fundamental about strength. Real strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about being authentic. It's not about never showing emotion. It's about being secure enough in yourself to show appropriate emotion at appropriate times. It's about having the confidence to be real. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about becoming emotionally uncontrolled. This isn't about crying at every minor setback or wearing your heart on your sleeve in every business meeting. This is about developing emotional intelligence, knowing when and how to express emotion in a way that strengthens rather than weakens your impact. When you're in a crucial moment with someone you love, maybe your partner is sharing something deeply personal, or your child is expressing their fears, or your team member is going through a crisis. What serves the situation better? Emotional disconnection or emotional presence? Distance or authenticity? A wall or a... The truth is, our capacity for emotional expression is directly linked to our capacity for connection, influence, and impact. When we cut ourselves off from our emotions, we're not just limiting our ability to connect, we're limiting our ability to lead, to inspire, to create meaningful change. Is yours something powerful to consider? Every time you show authentic emotion, you're not just expressing a feeling, you're demonstrating courage. You're showing that you're secure enough in your strength to be vulnerable. You're proving that your masculinity is robust enough to encompass your full humanity. Think about the impact this has on others. When a leader shows appropriate emotion, it gives permission for others to be authentic. When a father cries with his children, it teaches them that emotions are a natural part of being human. When a partner shares tears with their loved one, it creates a deeper bond of trust and intimacy. But there's something even more important at stake here. When we suppress our emotions, we're not just affecting our relationships, we're affecting our health, our creativity, our decision-making ability. Emotional suppression is like wearing a suit of armor all the time. It might protect you from some things, but it also restricts your movement, limits your flexibility, and exhausts you unnecessarily. Let's talk about what happens in your body. When you hold back tears, your nervous system goes into a state of tension. Your stress hormones increase. Your immune system is compromised. Your ability to think clearly and make good decisions is impaired. All because you're fighting against a natural, healthy human response. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine what becomes possible when you allow yourself to be emotionally authentic. Your nervous system relaxes. Your stress levels decrease. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your relationships deepen. Your impact becomes more powerful. All because you've given yourself permission to be fully human. This is where true power lies. Not in emotional suppression, but in emotional integration. Not in building walls, but in building bridges. Not in maintaining a facade of invulnerability, but in demonstrating the courage to be real. I want you to think about the cost of emotional suppression in your life. How many meaningful connections have you missed? How many opportunities for deeper intimacy have you passed by? How much energy have you wasted maintaining an emotional wall that nobody actually asked you to build? The path to greater power, greater impact, and greater fulfillment isn't through suppressing your emotions. It's through integrating them. It's through developing the emotional intelligence to know when and how to express them appropriately. It's through building the confidence to be authentic in all areas of your life. This journey isn't about becoming weak. It's about becoming whole. It's not about losing your edge. It's about gaining new dimensions of power. It's not about compromising your masculinity. It's about enhancing it with a full spectrum of you. Remember, the goal isn't to cry more. It's to be more real. The objective isn't to become more emotional, it's to become more authentic. The aim isn't to lose strength. It's to gain power through integration of all aspects of your being. As we move forward, I want you to consider this. What might become possible in your life if you allowed yourself to be emotionally authentic? What relationships might deepen? What impact might you have? What power might you access when you're no longer expending energy maintaining an emotional facade? Because the truth is, your emotions aren't your weakness. They're part of your power. Your vulnerability isn't your liability. It's part of your humanity isn't something to be suppressed. It's something to be expressed, integrated, and leveraged for greater impact in all areas of your life. The choice is yours. You can continue living with the parking brake on, expending energy, maintaining an emotional wall that nobody asked for and nobody benefits from. Or you can choose to access your full power by integrating all aspects of your humanity, including your emotions, including your tears, including your vulnerability. What would it mean for your life if you made that choice? What would it mean for your relationships? What would it mean for your legacy? These are the questions that will shape not just your future, but the future of every life you touch. We stand at a crossroads, not just as individuals, but as a society. The old model of masculinity, the one that demanded emotional suppression, that equated tears with weakness, that forced men to carry the crushing weight of artificial invulnerability, that model is crumbling. And in its place, we have the opportunity to build something far more powerful. The question isn't whether this change is coming. The question is whether you'll be part of leading this transformation or whether you'll be left behind, trapped in an outdated paradigm that serves neither you nor the people you care about. Let me share something profound with you. The most powerful force in human experience isn't strength or intelligence or even will, it's authenticity. When you're truly authentic, you tap into a power that transcends ordinary limitations. You access a level of influence that can't be achieved through force or control. You create connections that transform not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you. Think about the legacy you want to leave. When the people in your life think back on their relationship with you, what do you want them to remember? Do you want them to remember a fortress, strong but isolated? Or do you want them to remember a bridge, strong but connected? Do you want them to remember someone who was powerful but distant, or someone who was powerful because they had the courage to be real? The truth is, every time you choose emotional authenticity over suppression, you're not just changing your own life. You're changing the lives of everyone around you. You're showing others what's possible. You're creating a new model of masculine strengths that includes rather than excludes, that integrates rather than suppresses, that builds bridges rather than walls. Consider for a moment the ripple effects of your emotional authenticity. When you allow yourself to cry in front of your partner, you're not just creating a moment of vulnerability, you're creating a template for trust that can transform your relationship. When you show emotion in front of your children, you're not just expressing your feelings, you're giving them permission to be fully human. When you demonstrate emotional authenticity in your leadership, you're not just being real. You're creating a culture of trust and genuine connection. But here's what's really powerful. When you embrace your full emotional range, including your tears, you're not just affecting your present, you're changing the future. You're helping to create a world where the next generation of men won't have to carry the crushing burden of emotional suppression. You're helping to build a society where strength and vulnerability aren't seen as opposites, but as complementary aspects of authentic power. The cost of continuing down the old path is too high. We're seeing it in our rising rates of male depression and anxiety. We're seeing it in our struggling relationships. We're seeing it in our inability to form deep, meaningful connections. We're seeing it in the emotional distance between fathers and sons, between partners, between leaders and those they lead. But there's another way. There's a path that leads to greater power, not less, to deeper connections, not shallow relationships, to authentic influence, not mere authority. This path begins with a simple but profound choice, the choice to be real. This journey isn't about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's not about losing your strength. It's about integrating your humanity with your power. It's not about diminishing your masculinity. It's about enhancing it with the full spectrum of human experience. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most powerful, most fully yourself. I'm willing to bet those weren't moments of emotional suppression. They were moments of complete authenticity. Moments when you were fully present, fully engaged, fully. The power you're seeking isn't found in emotional suppression. It's found in emotional integration. The respect you're trying to maintain isn't preserved by hiding your tears. It's enhanced by having the courage to be authentic. The influence you want to have isn't achieved through emotional distance. It's created through genuine connection. The world doesn't need more men who are afraid to cry. The world needs men who are strong enough to be real. The world needs men who understand that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the ultimate expression of courage. The world needs men who know that their tears don't diminish their power. They prove that they're fully alive, fully engaged, fully human. Your tears are not a sign of weakness. They're a sign of your humanity. And your humanity is not something to be suppressed or hidden. It's your greatest source of strength, your deepest well of power, your most profound connection to what makes life meaningful. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine a world where men are free to be fully human, where strength and vulnerability are seen as partners, not opponents, where emotional authenticity is recognized as a source of power, not a sign of weakness. That world is possible. And it begins with you. The choice you make today, the choice to embrace or reject your emotional authenticity, will ripple out into every area of your life. It will affect every relationship, every interaction, every opportunity for meaningful connection. It will shape not just your future, but the future of everyone whose life you touch. You have within you right now everything you need to make this transformation. You have the strength, yes, the strength to be vulnerable. You have the courage to be authentic. You have the power to be real. The question isn't whether you're capable of this transformation. The question is whether you're willing to take the first step, whether you're ready to lay down the burden of emotional suppression and pick up the mantle of emotional authenticity, whether you're prepared to access your full power by integrating all aspects of your humanity. Remember, this journey isn't about becoming weaker. It's about becoming whole. It's not about losing your edge. It's about gaining new dimensions of power. It's not about diminishing your impact. It's about enhancing it. As we conclude our time together, I want to leave you with this thought. Your tears are not your weakness. They're part of your power. Your vulnerability is not your liability. It's part of your strength. Your emotions are not your enemy. They're part of what makes you magnificently, powerfully, authentically human. The time has come to put down the heavy burden of emotional suppression. The time has come to embrace your full humanity. The time has come to show the world what real strength looks like. The strength to be authentic, the strength to be vulnerable, the strength to be real. The choice is yours. You can continue living at a fraction of your potential, expending precious energy, maintaining an emotional wall that serves no one. Or you can choose to access your full power by integrating all aspects of your humanity including your emotions, including your tears, including your vulnerability. What would you choose? Will you continue to live by the old rules that diminish your power and limit your impact? Or will you step into a new paradigm of masculine strength? One that includes rather than excludes, that integrates rather than suppresses, that builds bridges rather than walls. The world is waiting for men who have the courage to be real. The world is waiting for men who understand that true strength includes vulnerability. The world is waiting for men who know that their tears don't diminish their power, they enhance it. The world is waiting for you. The only question is, are you ready to answer the call?